I'm Randy Cassingham, founder, publisher, and payroll specialist at ThisIsTrue.com, the longest running entertainment newsletter on the internet. Today the questions come from outside the US. I'll put them in the order of being very quick to answer, then quick, and then less quick. I've actually recorded this particular set of questions. This is the third try. The first time I had a audio problem. The second time I had a video problem. Let's hope the third time's the charm. So let's get to them. Stephen in Israel's question is a three-parter. Can you continue with descriptions of your travels? Yes. Every issue of the newsletter says where we are, where the stories were written, and residentialcruising.com gets articles that are more in depth, but This Is True has to come first, and so there's not a whole lot of articles there. I've been pretty stacked up, really trying to get things done. It's been a little tough here in Taiwan because the internet has not been very good, thanks to Taiwan refusing to license Starlink, which is our internet connection on this ship. So backup LTE system, which is a cellular, using local SIMs, has not been particularly reliable. So right now we're offline. So hey, the business center is very quiet and I can record this video. So part two is, did you see any Kodiak bears? I'm assuming he means in our time in Alaska. We spent about a month going in and out of fjords and small towns in Alaska. Fantastic time. I would do that again in a heartbeat. But we did not see any bears, Kodiak or otherwise. In fact, living in rural Colorado for 20 years, I can only think of one time I saw a bear, and that's because I went out of my way to see it. I was coming home in my car and I heard on the police radio that the sheriff had been dispatched to a house I was practically going to be driving right by. And so I swung over there just to kind of keep an eye on the deputy because I knew he had no backup. As it turns out, as you can see in this picture, he didn't really need backup. He was well prepared. He never had to use that particular tool. He just made sure that the bear moved on, and it did, and we all left. But hey, I got to see the bear. So number three, can you continue with your stories of EMS experiences? And that is in the plans also. I do have several more stories up my sleeve that I can tell, not necessarily from my time in Colorado, because I had a full career in California before I moved to Colorado. And I will, I've jotted down some notes on some of these stories, so I won't forget them. Once I read the notes, I go, oh yeah, that story, and I will tell those here and there as time goes by. So number two is Adam from Canada. I understand you're remarkably tall. Do you have or need to worry about Marfan syndrome or similar? And or how has being that tall been a negative in your life? Well, I don't really consider myself, remarkably tall is how we put it. I'm 6'3", which is about 1.9 meters for those of you who use a more rational measurement system. It doesn't really strike me as remarkably tall, although I'm tall enough that if somebody that's taller than me walks into a room, even if I'm sitting down, I can look up, see them, and say, that person's taller than me, because it's so rare. It's noticeable to me. The funny story that Kit has was she didn't really realize how tall I was until she saw a picture of us together and went, holy crap. I'm 13 inches taller, so more than a foot taller than she is. And for her, she said, everybody's taller, so it's just not remarkable to her. So since so few people relatively are taller than I am, I do notice. So, but still, I don't have any symptoms or signs of Marfan's. I definitely know what it is because a good friend of mine died from it rather suddenly. He knew he had it, and everything was going fine. He was very successful, and then all of a sudden he was dead. And that was a bit of a shock. So that's something that very tall or remarkably tall people definitely need to think about. And last, Yolanda in Canada. I'm fascinated by your current living arrangement. My question is, are there any pets on board, and what facilities are provided for them? I am also a great supporter of service animals, and are there any on board? Without giving away issues, obviously, can you provide examples of the kinds of pets on board, like specific species and breeds? Well, that's a fairly easy one to answer, since the only animals allowed on board are cats. No rodents for sure, even though they're small and all, because rodents tend to have a ability to get into tight spaces and start chewing on things like wires, and they definitely don't want rodents. Ships have rat traps along their lines when they're tied up on shore, which I think I have a picture of, and I can pop one in. But so cats are allowed. What kind of facilities are provided for them? None. The owners have to provide their own things, like cat litter and all that kind of stuff. They do have to dispose of the litter properly. It can't go down the toilet for sure, because we're basically on a septic system on a ship. There's no place. Actually, I think there is supposedly a place. I realize I'm looking up. I'm looking into my brain to remember the details. I think they're allowed up on the top deck, but I've actually never seen a cat up there. They're probably required to be on a leash. We have ship codes that sometimes you'll hear on the PA system. The typical exercise for the crew is a code Bravo, which means fire. Code Alpha means a medical emergency. And Kit told me that there was recently a code Meow, which means a cat escaped the cabin, because they're supposed to remain in the cabins. All the cat owners I'm aware of have a little sign on the door, particularly for the cabin stewards who can let themselves in to clean. Cat inside, be careful. And but apparently one got away the other day, and I didn't hear a code Meow, but apparently went out over the radio that I don't listen to. But that's essentially the most we hear about them. At least one, and I'm sure a couple others. There's several different people with cats. Up to 3 in a cabin is what I'm aware of. But there are several of them who allow visitors. One of them even has open hours periodically where you're just welcome to drop by if you need a kitty fix. And I did drop by once. I really do like cats, and I had a cat until I had to get rid of her for allergy reasons, and luckily a neighbor was happy to adopt Agent 99, or 9 for short, because I needed to start getting healthier. So I went to the open hours one time and was able to get a little cat fix, do some petting, and then I walked back to my cabin with my hands like this, just as a reminder to myself to don't touch my face, don't touch my eyes. Got to my cabin, washed my hands with soap and water, and then I could go back to normal. But I am still allergic to cats. I don't have any problems with the cats on board that I'm aware of. I virtually never take antihistamines anymore, so this move has been great for me, but I still get a cat fix if I really want one. That's it for this time. Do hit like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. That really does help people find the videos. And mostly the viewers are coming in on Facebook. It was interesting. I was getting a little dejected seeing that I'm only getting a few hundred views on YouTube. It's like that includes the people watching on my website. But then I checked the views on Facebook, and they're over 1,000 per video, and sometimes well over 1,000. I was really surprised. So interestingly enough, Facebook is where it's at for video right now, but of course I'm still going to be publishing to YouTube also. That's it for this week. Thanks very much. Sorry for the week's delay, but between the video and audio problems and then not having internet to upload the video, there's just nothing I could do about it. So we've essentially skipped a week there, but I'll hopefully see you next week. I'm Randy Cassingham, and I'll talk at you later.